I would like to call to order the October 17th, 2022 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners regular meeting. Welcome, everyone. We are pleased to have with us up front tonight one of our youth commissioners, Awas Kamran from Central Cabarrus. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. At this time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are very pleased to have with us tonight Dan Marshall from Capital Ministries for our invocation.
Would you bow with me in prayer? Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you in Jesus' name and through his finished work. Lord, we acknowledge that this is not just another item on the agenda, but Lord, it is special because of the calling of these people on this commission, that they are here by your divine design, that all authority is granted by you, and that each one of them represents that authority. Lord, we ask you to remind them that they are accountable to you and to those who have placed them here, and that no one of them is a one-man show, that they need you and they need one another to work as a team in order to accomplish the work that you have laid out before them and to care for the needs of this county. Lord, we also recognize that we as the citizens of this county have a responsibility as well, that you have called us to pray for these men and women, not just tonight, but throughout the month. They have their own challenges. They have physical issues. They are challenged mentally and physically, and we ask you to minister to them in mind, body, and spirit. Lord, that the business they conduct here tonight would be pleasing to you, advance the welfare of the people of this community and this county. We ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate the regular prayers and emails that we receive from you. First up is the approval or correction of the minutes. You all have a copy of those in front of you. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and we move to the approval of the agenda. You also have a copy of that before you. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with the changes on page 86? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we move to recognitions and presentations. First up, we're glad to have Gunnery Sergeant Victoria Gasick with us for our Red Ribbon Week 2022 proclamation. If you would, were you prepared to read the proclamation?
No, sir. Is it all right if I speak on it?
I would be happy for you to, and then I'll be glad to read the proclamation if you'd like.
Hello, my name is Young Marine Gunnery Sergeant Victoria Gasick, and I have here Young Marine PFC Norton. We are part of the Mecklenburg County Young Marines. We are here today to receive a proclamation for Red Ribbon Week. Red Ribbon Week is a week in October from the 23rd to the 31st.
If you would, please speak in the microphone so the television audience can hear you.
Red Ribbon Week is a week in October from the 23rd to the 31st, where we focus on living a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And our goal as Young Marines is to help spread that message throughout our communities, the dangers of drugs. And since it is a problem, I mean, it's a growing problem. So our goal here is just to spread that message and try to do the best we can to help our communities.
Great. Thank you very much. Did you have something to add?
No, sir.
Okay, great, thank you. And I will read the proclamation. Red Ribbon Week 2022 proclamation. Whereas alcohol and drug abuse in this nation have reached epidemic stages, and whereas it is imperative that visible, unified prevention education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs, and whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign offers citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, no use of illegal drugs, no illegal use of legal drugs, and whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign will be celebrated in every community in America during Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd through 31, and whereas business, government, parents, law enforcement, media, medical institutions, religious institutions, schools, senior citizens, service organizations, and youth will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. And whereas the community of Cabarrus County further commits its resources to ensure the success of the Red Ribbon Campaign. Now therefore be it resolved that the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim October 23rd through 31 as Red Ribbon Week and encourages its citizens to participate in drug prevention education activities, not only during Red Ribbon Week, but all year long, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to a drug-free county. Commissioners, do I hear a motion that we adopt this proclamation as presented?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next item, C2, is Rotary Day proclamation.
Chairman, I wanted to comment. You
Please,
moved on.
go right ahead. Yes, sir.
I wanted to take just a minute and thank you for the red ribbons. We will wear them. We get one every year, and so we'll add it to our collection. Thank you so much for being here.
We appreciate you guys' time, and we didn't intend on it to be a tongue twister either.
That's me, not you.
And everyone does that, but we do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Great, you're welcome. Okay, our next item, C2, is Rotary Day proclamation, and I requested this item be placed on the agenda. Our Rotary District Foundation for the large district in North Carolina will be meeting here in Cabarrus County for their annual meeting on November 18th. And so we wanted to pass this resolution in recognition of Rotary, and I will read that now. Rotary International Proclamation. Whereas Rotary International, founded on February 23, 1905, in Chicago, Illinois, USA, is the world's first and one of the largest nonprofit service organizations. And whereas there are over 1.4 million Rotary members comprised of professional and business leaders in over 46,000 clubs in 200 countries and geographic areas. And whereas the Rotary motto, Service Above Self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And whereas Rotary funds club projects and sponsors volunteers with community expertise to provide medical supplies, health care, clean water, food production, job training, and education to millions in need, particularly in developing countries. And whereas Rotary in 1985 launched Polio Plus and spearheaded efforts with the World Health Organization, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and UNICEF to immunize the children of the world against polio. Whereas polio cases have dropped by 99% since 1988, and the world stands on the threshold of eradicating the disease. And whereas Rotary is the world's largest privately funded source of international scholarships and promotes international understanding through scholarships, exchange programs, and humanitarian grants, and whereas in our community, there are more than 2,300 Rotary members in more than 60 clubs throughout the District 7680 in North Carolina, sponsoring service projects to address such critical issues as poverty, health, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in their local communities and abroad. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners for Cabarrus County, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim November 18th, 2022 as Rotary Day in Cabarrus County, and encourages all citizens to join in recognizing our local Rotary clubs and Rotary International for its more than 117 years of service to improving the human condition in local communities around the world. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to adopt this proclamation as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And I think we now have six Rotary clubs locally here in Cabarrus County. So we're proud of what they give to our community. Next, we have a proclamation for Adoption Awareness Month. And Sharon Schuneman is here to present that one, or Sharon Schuneman's stand-in is here to present that one.
Hello, Melissa Mayu from Cabarrus County Department of Human Services Adoption Unit. Thank you for this opportunity this evening. In North Carolina, we have over 12,000 foster children in care. Last year, over 1,500 children gained permanence through adoption by their committed foster parents and kinship providers. This year, we finally, after the COVID pandemic, we are able to finally celebrate 64 children and 44 families next month for the first annual Cabarrus County adoption celebration that we've not been able to have since 2019. So we're very excited for that, and we appreciate the opportunity again.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, we had several families who wanted to participate, but due to some child care issues, were unable to. So would you like me to read the proclamation?
You would, please?
Okay, thank you. Whereas Cabarrus County joins the nation in recognizing the month of November as National Adoption Awareness Month. Whereas Adoption Awareness Month gives us an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to give every child waiting to be adopted the chance to become a part of a forever family. And whereas Cabarrus County recognizes that all children need love, support, security, and a place to call home. Whereas when birth families are unable to meet the ongoing needs of children born to them, adoptions which are humane, honest, and rooted in the understanding that adoption does not erase a child's connections to the family into which they were born are the best alternative. And whereas some children travel from many parts of the world to join their adoptive families in Cabarrus County, North Carolina, and whereas some children in Cabarrus County live away from their birth families in substitute care, and many cannot return home and need the security and nurturing that adoptive families can provide, which is especially important for the many children with special needs. And whereas the many children in our local foster care program need and deserve permanent and nurturing families, and whereas every child is precious and deserves a loving home of his or her own, and whereas birth parents in Cabarrus County need support and compassion, and whereas adoptive parents and families who have adopted children require and deserve community and public agency respect and support. Whereas, and most importantly, let us pay special tribute to those special individuals, couples, and families who have opened their homes and hearts to adopted children, forming bonds of love that we can call family. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Board of Commissioners of Cabarrus County, do hereby proclaim November 22nd, 2022 as Adoption Awareness Month in Cabarrus County.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion to adopt as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you very much for bringing that to us tonight. Okay, from Planning and Development, we have Weatherization Day 2022, and we're happy to have Kelly Sifford to present that to us.
Thank you. Before I read it, I just want to talk a little bit about the program for the viewing audience. The weatherization program provides energy efficiency improvements to low-income families in our community. It has been in the community probably at least 30 years. I'm not exactly even sure how long it's been, people have been getting services, but I've been doing it for 20 years, so it's been here a long time. In that, we can do insulation, air sealing, wrap pipes, do a lot of different things to help people reduce their energy cost, which ties in with the crisis unit that provides heating assistance during the winter. So having said that, the proclamation of Weatherization Day 2022. Whereas October is National Energy Awareness Month and October 30th is designated as National Weatherization Day, and whereas the County of Cabarrus has a long-standing commitment to conserve its resources and to help low-income households through its Weatherization Assistance Program, and whereas the state of North Carolina has administered the Weatherization Assistance Program since its inception in 1976, providing a variety of state and federal resources through numerous community action agencies, housing authorities, and departments of local government that serve people in every county in the state. And whereas it is important to recognize the importance of the programs that ensure that all residents, especially those living at or below the federal poverty level, have the opportunity to live in energy efficient, healthy, safe, and comfortable homes provided for by the Weatherization Assistance Program. Now therefore be it resolved by the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim October 30th, 2022 as Weatherization Day in the County of Cabarrus, and urge all citizens to join in observance, adopted this 17th day of October 2022.
Thank you. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion to adopt as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And thank you for heading up the program. I think probably in this economy with the things we're experiencing, this is more important than ever.
It is, and for residents who might be interested in the program or need assistance, they can reach out to our department at 704-920-2141, and they'll be directed to staff who can assist them.
Great, thank you. Okay, next we have Operation Greenlight Proclamation. We're happy to have Tony Miller from Veteran Services to deliver that proclamation.
Good evening, everyone. Supporting Operation Greenlight for Veterans. Whereas the residents of Cabarrus County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all of the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedom and the way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas Cabarrus County seeks to honor these individuals who have paid the high price for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, veterans of foreign wars, religious groups, civil service, and the functioning as county service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. And whereas the studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life. And whereas active military service members transition from military service are at high risk for suicide during the first year after military service. And whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans. And whereas Cabarrus County appreciates the sacrifices of United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted. Therefore be it resolved in designation as a green light county for veterans, Cabarrus County hereby declares from October through Veterans Day, November 11th, 2022, a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active duty. Therefore be it further resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, Cabarrus County encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in a window on their place of business or residence. Adopted this 17th day of October, 2022.
Thank you. Commissioners, you've heard the resolution. Do I hear a motion to approve as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And I think that National Associations of Counties, as well as our North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, is encouraging everybody to burn green lights. I think there is a specific start date to that. It's something
November
like
the 7th through the 13th.
November 7th through 13th. I think we missed that in our proclamation. But it is my understanding that they do have a supply of green light bulbs at Lowe's and probably at some other places as well, but I did hear them specifically mentioned. So hopefully we'll have a lot of folks in our community that will participate by burning those green lights. And we thank you. And you have the next one as well, which is our Veterans Day proclamation.
Yes, sir. Proclamation Veterans Day 2022. Whereas America was founded on principles of liberty, opportunity, and justice for all. And whereas America has called on her men and women in uniform to protect our nation, national security, to preserve our rights and freedom, and to keep our democracy safe. And whereas through the steadfast defense of America's ideals, our service members have ensured our country still stands strong, our founding principles still shine, and the nations around the world know the blessings of freedom. And whereas on Veterans Day, November 11th, 2022, we recognize the men and women of our armed forces who have valiantly defended these values throughout our nation's history. And whereas we also remember and pay tribute to the American Armed Forces whose courage and sacrifice secures our freedom, keeps the peace, and defends our values around the world. Now, therefore, the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2022 as National Veterans Day and call upon our citizens to always remember and honor our veterans and those who continue to serve this country so willingly to preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy for all. Adopted this 17th day of October, 2022.
Thank you. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And I wanted to add that it was my pleasure to be able to be at Great Wolf Lodge last week to welcome the Veteran Services officers from all across the state of North Carolina that you and others hosted here in Cabarrus County. So we appreciate you bringing all those folks here and appreciate all the tourism dollars that they contributed to our county while they were here.
Yes, sir.
I hope it was a good conference.
It was a great conference, yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I also like to invite and remind everyone that our Veterans Day program will be in person this year at the Boys and Girls Club on Friday, November the 11th at 11 o'clock. So I'd like to invite all to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also point out that we do have a member of our board that is a veteran, and that would be Commissioner Shue. So thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we move now to informal public comments. Anybody that has filled out a yellow card and wishes to speak can come to the podium, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And if the timer goes off, we ask that you complete the sentence that you are speaking and stand back for the next speaker. Have these numbered in the order in which they were presented to our clerk. Number 1 is Richard Wise.
County Commissioners, thanks for letting me talk. First, I want to let you know that I am a citizen of this county. I'm a citizen of town Midland, and I have a few problems that I'd like to address. But one of the first things I want to do is your vision, your mission statement. Through visionary leadership and good stewardship, we administer state requirements, ensure public safety, determine county needs, and provide services continuing to enhance the quality of life. Well, I've been in this county for 16 years, and the town of Midland has not received the enhanced quality of life. Several things. One, our library. We pay for our library. We have more people in our town than the town of Mount Pleasant, but yet they're getting a free library put in by the county. And I got the specs here. You know, Mount Pleasant has about 1,700 people. Town of Midland is over 3,000. And if you go to the 22 specs, town of Mount Pleasant would be about 19,000, and the town of Midland would be about 5,000. But yet we pay $42,000 a year for library space. Where is that fair? And how does that enhance the quality of life in the town of Midland? Moving on, our WASAC members. This has been a sore thorn in my side, as many of you know that I have brought this up. We are not on the board of WASAC. And it was just brought to my past through the primaries that the town of Midland has no skin in the game. What does that mean? Does that mean we don't have any money or sewer in the ground? Yeah, we do, $1.5 million. And we have a $5 million grant to put more sewer in the ground. So why can't we get a seat on that board? County has 3 seats. Do they need it? What skin in the game do you have on that board? Moving on, the short subject, and it took me a long time to write this statement. I am a councilman, Rich Wise, of the town of Midland. I'm here tonight to complain about the chairman, Steve Morris, accepting large sums of money from the city of Kannapolis. Specifically, $300,000 for his stock in the Gem Theater, an additional $175,000 for the Gem Theater name and trademark, and then additional $62.50 per month for 2 years to serve as an independent contractor at Kannapolis. All told, we were talking about Steve Morris accepting $625,000 from the city of Kannapolis. You were appointed by this board to be a liaison of the city of Kannapolis. Citizens expect elected officials to act in the best interests of the public and not use their office for their personal benefit. $625,000 is a personal benefit. I believe it is in conflict of interest to take money from the city that you are supposed to be a liaison. I believe you should have disclosed the money and the conflict publicly here, these chambers months ago. You have not done this. How can you be objective on items coming for a vote in this chamber involving Kannapolis when they are paying you so much money? You can't. I am calling on you to either step down as a chairman or return the money. You can be an objective chair of this board while taking large sums of money. You cannot be an objective chair. You're supposed to use your leadership position on this board to serve the taxpayers, not your own personal interest. If you want to see the documents, you can go to the City of Kannapolis website, pull up June 13 agenda packet, the stock purchase agreement, independent contractor agreements. We're on the June 13 consent agenda. That's all I have. I hope you people make a better decision than what you have made. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our second speaker is Jerry Anderson.
As you know, I come up here since January talking about my daughter taking it illegally. She was screened wrong. That's all I'm going to say about it, but I do have a heartfelt statement to say. The parking lot DSS has an unprofessional gang mentality, not a cohesive unit with a large turnover, no racial training whatsoever to deal with mixed families, and y'all green like me. I'm a veteran. Green like my problem. But now, here's my problem. 5 months ago, I was talked about up here. Mr. Shue, I think you're a nice guy. You answered my calls, I would have voted for you. But when you got up here and called my family, because we're different, I got a black child, a middle child, a small family, those people, that's wrong, man. That hurt me to my heart. We know what those people are. Would you call your people those people, your family? That was bad. That was wrong. Barber, you had to chime in. You said I was out here asking for addresses, cornering people in this round building. You're wrong. That was a lie. I asked one person for their address because they're always up here, and that's Dan Marshall, who was up here giving the credence and bad-mouthing me over there at the school board, my family, talking bad about me, and I heard them. Mr. Kiger, I know why you ain't going to be here, because you don't like to hear nothing but what you want to hear. You, I thought you was a pretty good fella. You said, I'm up here for TV. No, I'm up here for my daughter and my dead daughter. Man, can't you get that through your head? I'm not up here for TV. You're wrong, and that's your thinking, and that's y'all's thinking. No wonder I ain't getting nothing done. Sir, 6 months I've been yelling? No. Call the FBI, call the DS, call everybody around. It's been more than 6 months. You did an investigation, and I heard somebody else yell. The state did it too. You got to give them the right information for them to get the right stuff. Y'all screamed my daughter wrong, been 6 years, and I'm tired of it. You need to work as fast as you took her to get her back home. I don't know what you used the money on. My granddaughter was never a problem, never was reported. How'd y'all get her? She never was reported. I reported my daughter. Y'all are wrong. Right now, I'm leveling that y'all abused, neglected, and exploited my family. My daughter is dead because she was neglected. She was abused by Jay White and all these trials y'all did to push her through. You got 2 DSS workers that need to be dismissed immediately. Immediately. They shouldn't have no more kids around them. And then you exploited and took a grandchild out of my house on a Saturday night.
Okay, our next speaker is Jeter Anderson.
Jeter Anderson, or those people. I come up here to speak to a county leader, but he was a county cheater. Cheated me out of my time with my family. All because of screening error. If we had a member that was black, this might have got figured out quicker. As soon as we said black child, everybody shut their doors, locked their doors, didn't want to hear it no more. Y'all got Operation Greenlight for these veterans? Check my dad's out, see how they did his sacred family that he fought for. See what happened to his daughter right here in Cabarrus County. No one has handled this scandal that's going on. Y'all all involved in this Cabarrus County scandal. Trying to shut somebody out, lock the doors, cut my mic. If you cut my mic, I never would have got what I got, the information I got. This situation should be figured out. This child needs to be brought home. And someone should be answering to the abuse my sister took. You know, this was a hit on my sister. Someone put a hit on my sister, and it was followed through on. And it needs to be looked in on. Who put a hit on my sister? Who put a hit on my dad?
Okay, our next speaker is Bishop Roland Jordan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, attorney, secretary. Thank God for you. Praise God. I greet you in Jesus' name. I had a couple of things that I want to address. I'll be working on prayer for our nation. It's very important that we need that. And looking for a mental institution for our people of all races. Due to the fact when they take them up there, they send them right back home, and then they get in trouble. We had a young lady killed her mother because of mentally. And I went to visit her. She said, God had her do it, but I explained it to her, no, not God, Satan. Satan will get in your mind. Satan get in my mind being a preacher. Praise God. But I know how to fight Satan out by prayer. So this is something important. We need beds for the families. And as well as Bible Scotia need help. We ask y'all to do what you can to help them. And I'd like to get an update on Mr. Ronnie Long proclamation. 44 years, I talked to him, the man is still hurting, hard for him to forgive. I think they will lighten up on his heart, being convicted of something he didn't do. So let's do what's right for the Lord and for yourself and for your family. God bless.
Great. Thank you. And that's all the yellow cards we have tonight. So we move now to old business. From infrastructure and asset management, courthouse expansion scope discussion, and happy to have Kyle Billifer to lead that discussion.
Thank you. We'll have Jason Harris also with us from Messer Construction, just like he was at the last meeting. And also online, we have Tom Potts and Jeremy Jones with Silling Architects. So in case any of the questions come up about design intent or the aesthetics of the building or the engineering of it, we can bring them in. So this part of the meeting comes from the original work session that we had on October 3rd, where we discussed the actual delta or bust in the budget that we had for GMP3, which represents the renovations of the 1975 courthouse. So currently, we're sitting at $7 million above what the budgeted number was based on the scope and based on the budgeting numbers done by Messer Construction for that project. We went through with the board on some possibilities that we could move forward with investigating to try to shrink that delta or the bust of the budget. And we've come up with two of those, which involve the adult probation location in the 1975 basement and keeping them in the swing space on the third floor of the 2023 courthouse. And the other thing that the board asked us to look at was the exterior renovations of the 1975 courthouse. So the design team, the owner, and Messer Construction have spent the past couple weeks going through those, walking through not just the building, but also the plans to try to provide some more insight to the board so we can get direction moving forward. We are planning on bringing up the bids at the regular meeting, the GMP3 bid at the regular meeting in November. So not the work session, but the regular meeting. It was originally planned to bring that up at the work session, but with these changes that the board is giving us advice on and guidance on in terms of scope changes, means that we have to push that out as we vet and go through those quick scope changes in terms of the GMPs coming in. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and he is going to go through exactly what our current bids are sitting at, and then the changes that we've already made based on the meeting that we had with you last time, which dealt with the rebid, and then also discuss some of the other changes that we can make, and I'll be jumping in to talk about adult probation.
Thanks, Kyle. Thank you, commissioners, for having us this evening. So I'm going to start with where our current bids stand. We currently have 4 bid packages remaining to bid of the overall set. Those packages are being rebid for a host of reasons. Some are due to lack of bids, some are due to lack of complete bids, some are due to package changes and rebidding authorized by this board. The remaining packages we have are due on November 1st. Those are BC 03A concrete, BC 22A plumbing, BC 31A site work, and BC 31B site work, or site concrete, excuse me. As Kyle mentioned, we're working to minimize the overage that we've had in some of these packages that we've already taken to date. The 2 places we feel we can see the most savings will be in the plumbing and site work packages yet to bid. The plumbing package has been changed, which should reduce the overall cost of that package. The first change of significance is the plumbing package completely pulled away the restrooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Those weren't required to meet necessary codes. Additionally, the current drawings reflect providing risers to those floors for future extension only. The second change associated with the plumbing package is the VE associated with the restroom fixtures to remain. The sinks currently shown in the original documents were combination units that had integral soap and hand dryers. Those have been scaled back to a fixture more in line with what you currently see in your 1975 courthouse. The site work package has also been changed in hopes of opening it up further to the market. So previously, the excavation and shoring work around the building that was shown in our base bid documents was driving up the overall cost of that package. That is some significant scope, and as a result, drove up the cost, which drove up the bid bond implications of that work. So by pulling that work into a alternate for the county, what we're trying to do is open it up to a wider market, because the bid bond implications of that package are now significantly lower.
And Commissioner Kiger, that portion, that was a question that you asked during the work session about how does the work get done if you're repackaging it, something being left out? And by splitting it up, you're allowing more of a competition because you're driving that value down and therefore the need for the bid bond. So I want to make sure that that question was addressed. And also just for clarification, and just to repeat it, the way that we've rebid that is no restrooms on 2nd, 3rd floor. You still have your water that goes up there, but all of your fixtures in your basement, in your 1st floor renovations, they won't be like what is in your 2023 courthouse. So they will be scaled back considerably to the type of fixtures, sinks that we have in the 1975 courthouse now. The other avenue that we were tasked with looking at was the location of adult probation. And the board was, all of you were present when we presented last time, but they're being shifted into a swing space on the 3rd floor of the 2023 courthouse. There was discussion of leaving them there and therefore not renovating their basement space in the 1975 courthouse. So attached, and I believe that you've had these on the agenda, we did meet county staff, the design team, and the construction team, met with the DPS, the folks that are in charge of adult probation, and I'll give you the summary and highlights of the letter. If we leave them in the swing space, we're going to need to go back and redesign that swing space. They cited both civil rights and HIPAA violations with the current layout. So we would be going back and doing a redesign, which would obviously be a cost to your architectural contract, as well as a cost to the renovations. So that was their letter. We also had a meeting with Judge McGee and wanted to get his input on the operational impact of leaving adult probation in the swing space. And I believe that that letter was also provided to you in that Judge McGee, District Attorney Ashley Shanley, and Clerk of Courts Bill Baggs all agreed that they felt that the location of adult probation needed to be in the 1975 courthouse. And I believe he brought up about 4 or 5 bullet points of just operational issues with leaving adult probation in the swing space of the 3rd floor. So is there any questions about that portion of the value engineering task that the board gave to Jason and myself in terms of going over anything with that swing space and adult probation? Because I can address that now.
Thank you, Kyle. No bathrooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor does cause concern for me. I don't quite understand. I know we're trying to drive the cost down, Can you elaborate a little bit on why we're not going to put those in? I mean,
You have that's a shell space. So we were building out the restrooms while we were in there to build them out. So you'll have nothing up there.
but, well, I guess it'd be a lot cheaper to do it now, if we was to do it now. But obviously, with the budget being as high as it is, we've got to scale it back.
Correct.
So we're not going to be using those second and third floor then, right now.
No,
If we leave use it as swing space for adult probation.
No,
I'm a little bit confused on that. All that legal stuff, I leave that to the lawyers. You know, I like layman's language.
Okay, the swing space for the adult probation while we renovate the 1975 courthouse is actually in the new big building that we're building across the street. So we're squeezing them in, and then once we renovate their space in the basement, we'll move them back. So the second and the third floor of the 1975 courthouse, which is the restrooms that Mr. Harris is talking about deleting, there's nobody living in that space. It's completely shell, but yes, you're exactly right. It is cheaper to build them out while you're stacking everything on top. So we've omitted that. All there will be is a water line and a sewer line going up.
And
That's
that's
it.
basically all they need to do what they need to do at some point, whenever they do.
Yes.
Whenever future county commissioners upfit it or whatever, you know, for whatever the use is going to be.
Correct, sir.
But do we anticipate how long that's going to be? Maybe that's a county manager decision. I don't know. How long will it be before we start using that? I don't want to see us have another jail. You know what I'm saying? The jail wasn't even being utilized there for a long time. And the spaces there, we built for the future, which is what we're doing with this courthouse too. But I don't want to see us cut back to the point where it's going to cost us 3 or 4 or 5 times in the future to redo it.
So before Mr. Downs jumps in, I could probably comment on one department that would be in there. So with what we built in for the clerk of courts, I don't think you're seeing expansion into that second and third floor. And Mr. Downs might talk about other county operations going there, but in terms of courthouse operations, I think that would be an expansion of, in fact, probation. And if you look at what we're building them, for their officers, we've given them enough room to grow. For their chief probation officers, we might have to cannibalize a probation officer because they have 6 and we're providing 6 offices. And we met, obviously we didn't design this in a vacuum. We designed it with them and what they thought their growth was going to be. So I'm not feeling that that's going to be a growth space for adult probation even in the next 5 to 6 years. That's not what they indicated to us.
Okay, well, I'm sure hoping so. And, you know, even when we're doing all the schools that we've been doing, when we build them, it takes 1.5 years, 2 years to get them completed. And then when you open them up, they're full. I don't think we're going to see that with the courthouse, obviously, because you got swing space. But can you elaborate maybe a little bit on the cost savings by not putting those utilities in for the second and third floor? I mean, I know that was part of the bid, that was $7 million over budget, but it never was broke down, though. I don't know how much we're saving if we cut this out.
Oh.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep,
If
sure.
we don't do it, what are we going to save?
Yeah, we can jump into that. So I brought some figures for y'all to hear from us today, and the one you're asking for, Commissioner Shu, specifically is about the plumbing. We didn't break it down, the 2 different items that I outlined. One was the reduction in the quality of the lavatories you're going to see. The other one was the removal of the second and third floor fixtures. We expect that to be on the order of $400,000 to $500,000 in savings. So a significant sum of money.
But now that's just in the change of the quality or the 75 model versus the 2023 model fixture.
Correct. So it's that and the removal of the fixtures from the second and third floor. It's the combination of those 2 that gets you to that $400,000 or $500,000 estimated figure.
Okay. And then if we didn't, which is what the new recommendation is, don't do the bathrooms, how much of the total ticket is that going to save us by not doing them?
That's the 400 and 500.
Yeah, it's the same number.
It's combined.
Yeah, so we're here right now, we're offering up services that would reduce that number, and the reduction would be removal of fixtures of the second and third floor and the lesser value fixtures on the lower floors.
Well, I think where I might be confused is, when I think of a fixture, I'm just like every common day people. You look at a fixture, you turn the water on, you turn the water off. All right, and when you say that's gonna save us 400,000 thereabouts, well, I'm saying, well, it costs to put those fixtures in. So the total package, including the fixtures and all of that, so you're saying labor, fixtures, everything, it's about 400,000, everything for the bathroom fixtures.
We have a singular plumbing package, and the package is reflective of supplying all those materials and installing it in the building. And what we're suggesting is an offering would be that we lessen the quantity of fixtures that are being installed and the quality of the other ones that are being installed to the tune of about $400,000 to $500,000 in savings against the overall budget that we're at about $27 million right now.
Okay, and of course, the labor and all of that's all included in the
Correct.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get around to. Okay, thank you.
So, does anybody else have any questions about adult probation specifically?
Just one quick question, and I don't know if we went over it during our work session. What is the time to complete the renovations in the current probation and parole, so that we know how long the probation is going to, not parole, but probation will be in the swing space?
Yeah, we estimate that work to start in June of next year and complete in August of the following. There's about a 14-month turnaround period for that renovation, roughly a 3-month period from us turning over the building to occupation, of the second building that we're doing right now for phase 2. So that all in all, about 18 months.
Yeah, Kyle is telling adult probation 18 to 20 months.
Okay.
Any other questions about the adult probation task?
Well, I guess, and I think you've probably made it pretty clear, but if we, of course, the judge very clearly, all of them recommend against that. And if we were to do that, we would realize significant expense in upfitting that swing space to make it a permanent space with all the things that are mentioned in these requirements. So probably the savings would not be as significant as we may have originally thought. Is that
Correct. The original value that we gave you was 2.3 million, and yes, you'd be having to go back and redesign and renovate that swing space considerably, so it would shrink that 2.3, which is what I think you're asking.
Right, exactly.
Yes, sir.
So we thought we were suggesting something that would generate a large savings, and in reality, it wouldn't be quite. It would be some savings,
That is correct.
but it would take away the flexibility of the new building, and it would also, then we would have to address all the issues and the concerns that the judges and courthouse staff have about that location.
Yes, we'd probably have to address the concerns from the state first, since they were
Right.
pretty significant in terms of their language that they used. If you read that letter,
Yes.
they were very
So-
precise in what they were telling us.
Having some knowledge of dealing with those folks, I could see the savings deteriorating even more as we move forward meeting their requirements.
Yes, it was made very clear to us on the call that their use of the swing space, the way that we had it laid out, was a concession by them, and that they were going to have to change their operations to maintain the privacy, the civil rights, and the HIPAA, and that was an inconvenience they were going through for us for 20 months, just to kind of get that full-time space. So it's very...
Not willing to do that on a permanent basis.
They were willing to sit down and redesign all of it to meet their needs, but looking at the footprint, I don't think that it can be met based on what their needs are.
And so I'm asking some of these questions for the benefit of the public that may be watching. And these are functions that we are required by the state of North Carolina to accommodate.
Yes, sir. By statute, we have to provide space to them, and I have to provide certain types of restrictions on the office types and the type of conversations they have in the spaces they're in.
Right, which is true of many of the functions in the courthouse.
96% of it.
Right, well, I think the public needs to understand that we're not talking about luxuries. We're talking about things that we're required by law to do.
Correct.
Okay, I will not interrupt. for another 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions on adult probation? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Jason to start to talk about the exterior, and wanted to put this up. This was also in the agenda item. Jason, myself, and the design team spent some considerable hours out at the 1975 courthouse taking a look at both what we would call the site package or the actual site, so horizontal surfaces that you would walk on, as well as vertical surfaces that go up and surfaces that are above you while you're standing under that soffit. And we'll start to comment on some of those as Jason goes through his next part of the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So Kyle pretty well already hit on what we're going to talk about here, which is an effort we had in identifying potential challenges with the existing space around the courthouse. So one of the options we presented to the board a couple of weeks ago was to leave the existing as it was. And what we wanted to outline is, what does that look like? So if you look at the pictures, what we've done is take a floor plan of the first floor of the 1975 courthouse, and we've done little shots around the building of what those existing conditions look like. And I think ultimately what we're trying to convey to this board is that there are many conditions around this building that are probably not satisfactory in just the everyday traveling around that building. You have ups and downs in pavers, you have dissimilar materials, you have deteriorating pavers, you have work that is probably needed to make that a fully accessible and safe functional space for the public moving forward. So part of what you're going to hear from us as we move forward is we've incorporated a lesser version of the hardscapes in our overall cost value estimation to y'all, to try to accommodate some changes to bring that up to where it needs to be for the public as we turn that building over later down the line.
So in going through kind of those, what you're seeing is you've got certain parts where you have pavers that look like they're sinking, okay? And we've got some of them roped off right now. So that is a detachment of the stormwater conveyance system that comes off the building and runs underneath. And what that is allowed to do is eroded and allowed the pavers to sink. So a couple times a year, we have to go out, add more sand, add more substrate, and they keep sinking because obviously we're not fixing the problem, we're just Band-Aiding it. So part of this process that we went through is what could we do to go in there and fix that while still not touching the entire exterior and ripping out brick and putting in curtain walls and things like that. So we kind of divided it up in terms of how we would go through these different saving packages, and Jason can elaborate on the three of them and what the savings from those would be.
Yeah, sure. So Kyle, we've already presented the first one to y'all, which is the plumbing option at about $400,000 to $500,000 worth of savings. The second option would be, and it's something actually we're already doing, which is repackaging that site work package and the hardscape package in an effort to open that up. We've also reduced the scope of that work and moved some of that to an alternate. So we are hoping to see a savings in the $600,000 to $800,000 range from those rebid efforts. So between the two of those, you know, if I combine that plumbing one and the site work one, I'm going to try to walk through this slow because there's a lot of numbers here. We're hoping to see a savings on bid day of November 1st in the order of $1 to $1.3 million worth of savings. Okay, so that's work we're already doing that we don't need authority to proceed with, or you've already given us authority to proceed with. And then where that's heading would be, that leaves us with two remaining options that we're looking at on the exterior of the building. So one of those options would be we replace the existing storefront as it is in its current status. So all those existing openings you see around the 1975 courthouse, we would tear out and put new in place, and then do some limited version of what's currently on the drawings in hardscapes. So eliminate the risk that's there and give a somewhat more permanent condition to what we're turning over. We expect that could reap about $2.25 million worth of savings. And between the efforts we're already doing and that effort, hopefully get us to the region of 23.5 to 23.75 million on the whole. So that's option one on the exterior. Option two on the exterior is we leave everything as it is, and we do minimal work on the hardscape just to make it safe. We think that that's a little bit bigger savings, roughly $2.75 million versus the 2.25, so an additional $500,000 in savings. And the estimated value of our GMP then would be 23 to 23.25 million.
Okay, so everyone's writing those down because obviously when we walked in, it was the GMP value of 27 million. Okay, so that was the 7 million delta. So I think obviously from the board, we're looking for direction, because first we heard, don't touch any of the exterior. So I will tell you that if you're going to ask me my professional opinion, you have to touch the hardscape, the horizontal hardscape of that area. You have to go in and fix those issues. Now, keep in mind, if you don't do the entire exterior, we're not going in and we're not doing any waterproofing. We're not doing any seismic code upgrades, anything like that. Not that we're in an active seismic zone. I'm just kind of explaining that by losing those shear walls and all that exterior work, that's pretty much what we're doing, is we're just going in there and hardscaping, whether it's most likely stamped concrete. It won't have the same pavers that are in GMP2 or the new building. It won't match any of that portion nor match of the building that's there. And then additionally, if you can imagine the elevation change between Union Street and the current courthouse, we would be going in there and changing the aesthetics of that at one of the lowest values we could do. So concrete walls versus block walls, rather than landscaping beds, probably just stamped concrete, just as much as we can do to drive that cost down on that delta. But there is a significant amount, or a certain amount, I should say, that needs to be done just for life safety, egress, ADA, that you have to touch there just based on the age of the building. And obviously, we've been waiting for GMP3, which is why some of these things have been just mitigated versus gone in, teared out, and fixed. So we are looking for some guidance about, do we just replace the existing curtain wall or storefront, or just take it out where we need to go into the building and then put it back the way that it is? Obviously, there are some changes you'd have to make just to your front slider vestibule where you enter, because you don't want people to enter there anymore. Or are we, replacing just what is there for curtain wall and storefront? So just the windows and the frames that you see now, do we replace those with new and do the limited hardscape? And I know that this is a difficult discussion, so would you like me to say the numbers over again about what each of those would equal?
What was the total?
Okay, loaded
Bathroom
question.
And
Okay.
exterior, option number 1. Option number 2, again, this is my opinion, that doesn't, you can't do that because you already are over there once a year making repairs. When you've got the road blocked off and the whole thing under renovation and you don't fix that, to me, that's, you've totally stubbed your toe and dropped the ball. So, again, the total package and savings of what you have presented tonight with option 1 on the exterior is how much?
Yeah, so I think the best way we can say it is the numbers we think we can get to is probably the easiest way for everybody's ears today. And so option 1 is replace existing storefront and the hardscapes, as well as the items above, the plumbing and the site work that we're repackaging. And we hope that the estimated GMP would be in the range of 23.5 to 23.75 million. And then you're looking at roughly an additional $500,000 in savings should we leave the exterior as it is and just stick with minimal hardscape changes. So that would mean you still have your brown storefront, you still have older elevations. We're not touching it in the same way, whereas in that first option we're giving you that's slightly more expensive, we're upgrading your storefronts, right? You're getting new storefronts, new glass, higher U-value in your building, probably more longevity.
So that was 2.3, and then you had the plumbing's 400 to 500. So now we're at 2.8.
Yeah.
Just south of 3 that we've eaten into the 7.
Yeah, a little bit
Correct.
more.
A little bit more than that.
All right. Well, I will make the same comment. I will be very brief that I made previously. I was the only one, and I certainly understand why I was the only one. I still think this board should proceed with the design as we started with for a building that will be here for the next 75 years. It will never be cheaper. As expensive as it seems now, it's not going to be cheaper to go back in to do upfit work and whatever on a square foot basis. So I think there's just and again, this will be a future board, to juggle future projects and needs as this board moves forward. So that's all I'm going to say, because the rest, it was pretty clear at the work session that was not the general consensus.
So you're saying go ahead with the full plan that included the 1975 building, opening up the corners and whatnot? Yes. So forth, and sunscreens and so that?
Yes,
stuff.
but
Yeah.
even then, we still took the plumbing package out of it. So instead of 27 million at this point, sitting at 26.5.
Right.
I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but 35 years from now, 25 years from now, that we will probably outgrown it. Hopefully, it has lasted forever. As the population keeps growing, we're going to get more judges. There's just that needs, it's never going away. And it is somewhat cosmetic, but again, when you build something right, it's the centerpiece of, it's the new centerpiece of downtown Concord. And I think I know it made Rodney very nervous as we talked about it at the previous meeting. I know it made county manager very nervous. I think it's just one of those things you sort of have to grit your teeth and go through and you look and map out and plan. And there'll be something somewhere down the road that takes a hit. And then that's the way you would have to proceed. But again, I said it last time, that's very easy for me to say. I won't be here when that somewhere down the road hits. And I fully acknowledge that, and I totally understand that it's easier for me to say that than it would be for someone else.
If I could, I would add that, Kyle, you mentioned the plumbing would be on $400,000 to $500,000 range. We're still hoping to see savings from the site work package and the way we're repackaging that. Our goal is to get that GMP as it is right now to 26 million. So not 26.5, 26 if we see some savings from that site work repackaging. So that's just valid information for y'all to have.
Robert, can you come up just one more time, and sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just to talk about what those potential, you described them last time, that potentially, if we go with the 7 million, that in 3, 4 years, 5 years, you may be pushing some projects out. Is that an automatic, or are there other conditions that may occur that won't happen?
Yes, I think that's the challenge with this, is there is no guarantee that there will be an impact. So you can move forward with GMP3 as designed, and we could be here 2 years from now and not have to delay any project. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. There's a lot of uncertainty in our revenue sources. So sales tax, for example, is a big driver of our community investment fund for our capital investments. Well, it's been doing really, really well. And if it continues to do that well, we probably will have sufficient resources to fund all of these projects. We just don't know what the economy is going to look like. We don't know if there's going to be a recession, et cetera. And so to Mike's point, or the county manager's point, we don't know where we will be in 2 years. There's a possibility that you will be looking at some tough decisions around projects, but it's also possible that we'll be looking at additional projects that we can then afford. So there is no guarantee. And I did want to point out, because I think it's important, the way the Community Investment Fund is structured is we have a dedicated general fund source of $36 million that goes in each year. So all of these decisions, that amount is fixed. So the tax rate is not impacted by these decisions. In terms of what you do on this project or other projects, that's 36 million stays there and it's flat from year to year. So there is no tax rate impact of these decisions.
So what you're saying is your crystal ball is no better than anybody else's?
I hope people have learned that lesson.
We try.
No, that is, you are correct. There's a lot of unknown.
Well, I guess I better chime in a little bit. Honestly, I could probably go either way, but I'm of the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it. What we got is working, it's just not big enough. It's just outdated. If we could go in and spend whatever we need to spend to make it safe for the public, I don't care so much about the cosmetics of that. We've put up with it since 1975. And so it's going to be the same as far as I'm concerned. But if you're having issues with the pavers, we need to do something about that. That would be a more permanent fix. But if it's going to cost us $7 million or more to do the whole thing that we had planned to do, I don't really want to see us do that. That's sort of like getting the bells and the whistles, and so I don't really want to see us do that, but I'm not going to say, no, I wouldn't go along with it. But I'm thinking, though, and I know it's probably confusing to my board members, well, which way are you? Are you for it or are you against it? Well, the point is, and it was well stated by Commissioner Kiger, we all know that there'll be times that we say, well, wish we could have done this, wish we had have done that instead. And it's just like when this building here was built, I don't know what year it was built, but it adopted many nicknames.
1990.
When was it, Mike?
1990, I believe.
1990. So when this building was built, everybody called it the Pink Palace, and they called it whatever, the big pink building down, and so the public's going to nickname it something. I don't know what this one will be, but I just want us to do it right and do what's right for the citizens. And if we can save money, we need to. But if this board says no, we want to go ahead and do like we originally planned, I would go along with that. But I think it would be wise to not spend no more than we have to get what we need that will meet the needs of a growing community like Cabarrus County. So, but anyway, if I don't know how to be much more clearer than that. I want us to spend as least as we can.
As I stated in the work session, I'm not in favor of, and I think most of us were, with the exception of Blake, not in favor of doing the full renovation as originally designed. I do have one question. On the storefront, you're talking about replacing the doors, correct?
I'm talking about the entirety.
Yeah.
So the
entirety.
The
Okay.
entire frame, glazing, everything. So anything you see that's the old brown with glass would go.
Okay. Has there been any consideration since parole or probation is going to go back down into the basement of 1975 to leave the original sliders there for easier access and also keep, probation? They're usually going in there for a 5-10 minute stop to keep that access open just strictly for probation.
The design team we looked at, they wanted to talk to us about a separate entrance in the beginning, but you would violate life safety code by having an entrance only for them. So, and you also would have to staff it. I assume you would want to staff it with another courthouse security team.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
In terms of weapons going in, unless that's not a concern.
No, it is. And that's why I wanted to make sure for the viewing audience that entrance will be eliminated for all parties.
Yes, there will no longer be an entrance on Union Street.
Right.
At all.
Okay.
If you want to go to probation, you will come into through the public plaza, which was previously Means Avenue. You will go through courthouse security. You will come around to clerk of courts, and you will go downstairs.
Thank you for that clarification for the viewing audience.
You have anything?
I agree with what Commissioner Shue said. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But obviously, looking at these photographs and your descriptions, there are some things that are broke as far as pavers and sidewalks and levels, and there are some details on here about some overhead items that I don't totally understand, clouded, recessed light fixtures and so forth and so on. So, I am interpreting, and I certainly welcome you to correct me if I'm wrong, that there are some broken things that need to be fixed.
Correct. So the lights that are in the in the soffit above, which I can probably show you. So those kind of show the light fixtures up in the soffit above. We've not repaired those probably in the last 4 to 5 years.
Because you were anticipating this project.
Well, there's actually 3 reasons. You have to take a scissor lift to get up there, which means I put more pavers that are broken and sidewalks that are broken, so I actually create more of a problem.
Right.
And then there's obviously always the safety issue of driving that piece of equipment with the public that's around there.
Right.
So we actually came back, and on the one picture down in the corner, you can see we added exterior light fixtures that both shine up and shine down to try to give it that same type of safety versus a light up in the
Right.
soffit. Yes, and the issues with the soffit that you see are, the aesthetics of it. I mean, that's essentially what you're looking at is the aesthetics of that actual panels that are there. So not just the lights, but the actual aesthetics of it.
And so what's included in our original plan was for all of that to be replaced?
The soffit was to go in its entirety, the lights were to get switched out, and there's work above that soffit as well that's in the original plan. When we rip out that entire wall elevation, we've got to tie the new wall elevation into the existing structure. So that soffit goes and has to be replaced with new elements.
Now, which new wall are you talking about?
I'm talking about if we were to do any new walls on the exterior.
That was part of the cosmetic
It was part of the overall
piece.
27 million.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the cosmetic portion that is the original design, I understand that, we call it cosmetic because it is glass and everything, but it's also putting in shear walls, you're adding a seismic rating, and you're tearing down the entire building down to the footer and waterproofing the entire basement and all that goes along with it. So it is more than just cosmetic. While it's open, you would do all that, what I will call structural and civil work.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Do we have problems that in the basement that we're getting ready to spend a significant amount of money renovating for adult probation that need to be addressed? I mean, is there water infiltration into that space?
You have moisture infiltration. I don't think that you see it in running water. You have a lot of CMU block down there that you kind of get the, effervescence kind of comes through
Right.
on it. One would like to think that when we do a dialed back hardscape repair and don't have that stormwater running into it, that I have less concerns about that.
So there is a distinct possibility that you may come back before the board 7, 8, 10 years from now and say the water problems in the basement of the 1975 courthouse, where we spent significant amount of money upfitting for adult probation, has now gotten to a point that we're going to have to excavate the exterior of that building and do some additional waterproofing, et cetera, et cetera. How far-fetched is that?
I would most likely come back to you and tell you that we're going to drill through the interior wall and epoxy coat the backside of it versus excavating everything. But yes, I could come back to you with moisture issues. Absolutely.
So that sounds like a big deal to me. How does that sound to you? I'm not a construction person, so I can't validly say.
You are compromising the exterior envelope by not taking advantage of the ability to do the work at this point.
And so we're talking about $7 million. This is what we discussed at the work session, over what we had budgeted.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we all, I think, understand that every budget is just like what we talked about, the crystal ball earlier. It's a educated guess, projection of what we think it's going to be. And I know you have some very professional folks that have done that. And so all these things that we've talked about, what's the bottom line? We've gone from 7 million over to how many million over? If we minimize the hardscape improvements and all the things that we've talked about and left out, no commodes, no sinks on the second and third floor, that's what you're actually saying, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you're talking, I'll just make sure I understand, not replacing any of the curtain wall, which means the glass or anything, but still doing the changes to the hardscape.
The safety issues
correct.
specifically.
You're probably looking at 23 and a quarter to 23 and a half.
You're going to have to break it down the way
Sorry.
I ask it.
4.5.
How much of that $7 million overage have we eaten away?
A little under 4 million.
Yeah.
A little under 4
27 to
million.
23.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3.5
Yeah.
million.
So $4 million.
Yeah, so, and that sounds better, but in essence, we are kicking the can down the road. We are saying that we're going to save 4 million, did we say 3 million or 4 million? I can't believe these. About 3.5. We're going to save $3.5 million today so that a future board will probably have to spend 8 or 9 million to go back and do these things at a later time. Unless the cost of construction magically decreases, and Commissioner Kiger is not predicting that.
I am not predicting that.
So you're.
Yes, that is correct. That's what you're saying.
Well, and I'll add one little thing. I think Commissioner Huntington has, when we replace the glass, is low E glass going in?
Yeah.
And low E glass obviously is not in currently.
Correct.
So you have operational savings once you replace that glass. That's true.
But again, not adding any, so just what is there now being replaced. So when you do renovate the third and the fourth floor, the second and the third floor, and you want to put a courtroom up there, you want to put something, you have no glass to look out of.
Which you don't now.
Correct. Oh, yes, you're exactly correct. You don't, other than the front lobby, and that would obviously still be there.
In the original
So, yes,
design, you would.
that is correct.
Fortunately, did not get to come to the work session. I did try to follow you guys by YouTube. Not sure how successful that was. I think it's a difficult decision that we have to make, and I think that's what we got elected to do. From the real estate point of view, it seems like taking the easy way out, not to do what needs to be done that we know that's going to happen in the future. So that we can say we saved money. Now, I'm for saving money anytime we can, but what we're doing is putting the burden on the backs of people down the road, and it's going to cost more money. And so I would tend to go with Commissioner Kiger's point of view or Commissioner Morris, somewhere between those two areas, for us to do as much as we can do and not leave that for future commissioners and future citizens to pay more for than they would have to pay if we did it now, although it may cause complications 2 years from now. But we probably will have bigger complications as well, so those may not be the only ones we would have. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but, or how helpful it might be.
Thank you.
Well, I think it makes sense, and just as Commissioner Shue pointed out, the commissioners that built this building we're sitting in right now caught a whole lot of grief for building it. It has served the county well for over 30 years. It is filled to capacity currently. There's not an unused space anywhere in the building that I'm aware of. And we're looking at some of this space as potentially relieving some of that pressure. And so I've heard some discussion in the past that maybe some human services functions may possibly go in some of this space that's currently shell space. Is that an accurate?
We were exploring that idea. Right now, Karen's not comfortable that would be the best place for them, so we may end up back there, but we're also looking for other locations that are more accessible.
Right.
Than what the current courthouse is.
So when that 1975 courthouse building was built, that was also the county offices.
It was.
They were in the basement.
Yes, my first office was in the basement.
Yeah.
It was in a closet.
And so the can that we're kicking down the road, the future expense that we may be incurring, it's probably going to be one of our departments that causes that to be incurred. And so if that is the case, then we would probably say, you know, the smartest thing we did was to go ahead and do what we needed to do when we built that new courthouse, because if we hadn't, we would be paying dearly today. And so we may be in that position. So I think that I would be in favor of, if we can, save where we can. If there are, for example, on the 1975 building, the sunscreens that were designed on there, would you say that's a functional or a cosmetic, or was that to better tie into the design of the new building?
All three, but lesser of operational that you think. It would cut some of the glare out into that curtain wall, but yeah, it's $432,000 worth of savings if you get rid of those.
Yeah, and was that included in this overall?
Yeah.
That's included in the overall.
Yeah.
But it could also be taken as an à la carte option. I mean,
Right.
if you chose to leave the bulk of it, that is one that would be an easy thing to say, don't do, could be done
Right.
later.
Right.
That is
Yeah.
an easy removal option.
Is Tony from Veteran Services still here? I think he had to leave. I was going to ask if you replace these lights in the soffit, if they're going to be LED, that we can change to green when we want to light up the building green.
He's already asked. None of the lighting packages in any of the courthouse have that ability. They're all tunable white. So the only place we have that capability is downstairs in the rotunda.
Yeah, we need it exterior somewhere on one of the buildings.
On my list.
Huh?
I'll put that on my list.
Please do. Well, that none of these are easy decisions, and of course, I'm just one of 5. But when you start looking at these hardscape improvements and say, okay, well, we definitely need to correct the problem with the sinking pavers. And if underneath the sinking pavers, there's a stormwater drainage issue, then we definitely need to fix that. Well, if we have dug up all that, and I know that doesn't mean you're going to dig up around the whole building or however that process goes, then we definitely should address the waterproofing issues while that's dug up. So if you start using that logic, where is a cutoff point? There probably isn't one. And that's the reason it was designed that way in the first place. Because the people that did it, including the two of you, are smarter than we are on those kind of issues. And so we ought to be smart enough to listen to that advice, in my opinion. I've been involved in all kind of projects for myself personally over the years where I thought I was cutting corners and saving money, and then at the end of the day, well, I didn't. It didn't play out that way, and certainly don't want that to happen here. And this is not the primary consideration, but I mean, I think we have a responsibility to the citizens and to the city of Concord, the investment that they're currently making in redeveloping the streetscape in downtown Concord, and we need to make sure that we're a presentable part of that. So
I will need a decision from the board about which way to pursue for the GMP. So unfortunately, I kind of need to put everybody on the spot so that I know which way to move forward. And Jason knows which way to move forward in terms of bidding this, whether we're at this point keeping the exterior the way that was originally designed and removing the plumbing package like we talked about, hopefully reaping the savings from the repackaging of the civil and site package, and if you want, in terms of the a la carte menu, removing the sunshades, or if we're moving forward with a revised where we're just fixing the hardscapes and we're not replacing the curtain wall, or we're fixing the hardscapes and we are replacing the curtain wall.
And when you say replacing the curtain wall, I'm not sure I totally understand. You're talking about removing the glass and the metal frames and putting new solid glass in,
Correct.
so it doesn't look like there used to be an entrance there and we just locked it.
And it looks like you have all new systems.
Yeah.
Right,
And one way or the other, we have to modify what's there now.
Right.
Because it's not going to be an entrance in its final condition.
right.
We have to modify it.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is replacing with new in its entirety.
And we have some very specific security requirements and all of those kind of things that go along.
Correct. We can't just lock those slider doors that are there now.
Right.
And there will still be, keep in mind for egress and life safety, you'll still have exit-only doors there like you do now. You might not even recognize them if you're there walking in the front, but they are there on your left-hand side.
So it's kind of like some of the discussions that we've had about school resource officers and security in our schools. There, what looks like might be a savings and a smart thing to do, if we have one tragedy, all that goes away. And the general public will not be sending us a thank you note for saving money that caused somebody to lose their life or that there was some tragedy. And we've read about some pretty horrific things that have happened at courthouses. I mean, so and I'm not predicting that to be the case, but I just think we need to be mindful of those situations as we make these decisions. It's kind of like the hardscape, the pavers, the sidewalks. If we have one lawsuit from an injured citizen, that could eat up a huge amount of savings.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to talk just another minute or two. Going back to when we were doing the plans for the new courthouse, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Ms. Minot was part of our board at that time. And one of the things that she brought up, and I think it came from the Cabarrus Historic Society, was the view. And so when we started looking at the view coming from South Union going on North Union, that it was the existing building was going to hide the old historic courthouse. Well, it hasn't hid it for all these years, but because it was a concern, and we felt like that we would like to expose more of the old historic courthouse, that's when all of this stuff came into play about the renovating the exterior of the 75 courthouse. Now, whether it's going to change the functionality of the building, it will not. It'll be the same. Am I correct on that?
I'll make a quick comment on that. In one of my very first meetings, Kyle presented to our board, do you want to save the building, the 1975 building, or are we getting rid of it? And that was one of the very first decisions that we made, and this board as a group said, hey, it's space that we probably can't afford to just get rid of, so we better renovate. And then, I don't know, anything that discussion had taken place before that, but that was hiring the firm that ended up doing the design. That came later, and they were given the task of melding the two together. But that was one of the first decisions that this board made that when I first joined the board. But anyway, now you can go ahead and answer.
Yeah, and you're right, Blake. I remember well, because I was so relieved, thinking that we were going to tear down a perfectly good building that had just got outdated and we didn't have enough space for everybody. And we were going to tear it down and put a whole new courthouse. So I was totally relieved when we come up with a renovation plan for the existing 1975 courthouse. But see, that has progressed to where we decided, well, we want to see the historic courthouse, so let's cut that corner off and let's just change the way it looks on the outside so people can see the historic courthouse. That was the whole purpose of that renovation on the outside on that particular corner, if we kept the building. Now, am I not right on that?
I think it was a portion. Would that?
Just the corner, it was, instead of being this way, it was going to be at an angle where people coming from south to north Well, when you cross Corbin, you can see the historic courthouse there, part of it. Well, the way it's always been, you just drive a little bit further and you still see the historic courthouse. But I'm still just, rolling around in my mind and in my heart, spending $7 million to see the courthouse that's not going nowhere. It's been there, it's going to stay there, and if we don't do something to the outside of it, it's not going to affect the functionality of the building, whether we do anything or whether we don't do anything. But the issues that are of concern are the lighting, for example. I think somebody mentioned the lighting under the fascia. I understand that. That's no problem. It probably does need to be updated. But the real problem, though, is the pavers and the underground erosion that could potentially cause a problem at some point for the basement. I understand that, but then again, though, that's a crystal ball, just like it is for the budget. We don't know. It could, but if we fix it now, it might eliminate that problem. And maybe we want none of us to be around here when that problem comes around to be somebody else's problem. But we deal with it right now, though, as best we can with the amount of money that we've been allotted to pay. And I know a lot of times we go over budget with schools, because costs are escalating. Everything is escalating. And so we might, like I said a while ago, wish we had done it. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. I just go back to the purpose. The whole purpose was so people that were coming from south to north could have a little bit better picture of the historic courthouse. That was my take anyway.
Yeah, I think, Commissioner Shu, I think that was some of the original conversations, but I think when we brought on the new architects and we brought on the new contractor, it was also more of to try to blend the two buildings together so that they looked alike versus a brand-new building, and then you have the 32-year-old building with very little windows at all. It's just a large structure. So there were further conversations other than that, just can't see the courthouse. So.
Well, just for clarification, any of these modifications, does it accomplish that goal? Because it doesn't look like it to me.
Meaning the hybrids that we're discussing?
No.
Any of it. Let's say we don't change a thing. We stay with the plan as it was written.
Yes.
Does it accomplish what he just described, impacting the view of the historic courthouse?
Full transparency, because I was actually the recipient of the email from former Commissioner Minette and the subsequent phone calls and conversations. She wanted to see the historic courthouse while you were sitting at the stoplight where Rotary Square was. The presentation I brought to you all was literally a line of sight from that stoplight where there was no way short of taking 2/3 of the building off. And but as you would drive closer, like you normally would, you would be able to see the historic courthouse. So putting that curtain wall and that storefront, yes, as you're driving, I guess you'll see it a bit sooner, but it opens up the entire view to the plaza. But again, just for transparency, you're saying $7 million to achieve that. That's not what I'm here saying. That $7 million, you're already bust. So I guess you could say to achieve that, it might be $3.5 million, but that's not the only thing you're achieving. And no, I feel confident if former Commissioner Minette was here, she would tell me I'm still not getting to what she wanted. Because when it first came to me, it was literally the intersection of Corbin and Union. You're able to see the historic courthouse. And I assure you, I've walked it many times, and no matter what we're doing, I can't achieve that short of cutting the building in half.
And I will substantiate that, and I have done the same thing. I have stood on the corner a long time, looking, thinking, and no, you cannot.
Commissioner Shu, I did mention it when we came back with a design for the whole building and made sure that I put an image of that corner on there to show you what that corner would look like in terms of how it was improving the aesthetics of something down there. But I still feel confident I did not meet her request, at least not the original request.
I know if you could, you would try it. I know that, for sure. Mike, you've been around forever. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I again, I kind of.
You're the old guy around here,
I am the old guy, yes. I tend to lean towards Commissioner Kiger. While it is a large number that we come back with, it's an overage, but I think in the long run, the county will be better off. One, it's going to, well, if we just talk aesthetics, it's going to, that old building will blend into the new building, that's one thing. But just all of the repairs are going to be made. It's worth it to do it now while we're already out there, everybody's mobilized on site, we could do this, the materials or the equipment's there. If you take that away and come back in 6 months, it's going to be even more, just 6 months out, just to remobilize. And if it's 3 years from now, it's going to be more of an issue. So yes, it's very much expensive, that's why I wanted Rodney to talk about a little bit on the budget. Yeah, it may have impacts in the future. It doesn't mean you can't build something in the future. It may just mean that you have to move it out a year or two farther than what you were hoping to. And then again, if the economy turns around quickly and moves back in the other direction like we were 2 years ago, then we may not have any issues. And we may be moving right along and able to build just as we've scheduled. So
I think I cited as an example at the work session when we talked about this. I remember very clearly the discussions we had about West Cabarrus High School. Same issue, cost overruns. We were going to leave one portion of a floor, one floor. We said, well, we're going to leave that as shell space, and we'll come back when we need it and upfit it at that time. And then we got into discussions about changing building codes and increasing cost and how it would be more expensive. So after much deliberation, we finally said, okay, we're going to go ahead and build it out, the whole space. Well, that school is what, three years old?
Yeah,
3 years old. Every single space in it's full. And we're planning to build more now to try to accommodate the needs. So, that was a decision. I think we went the right direction in that. I think we need to go in the right direction on this one.
I'm going with number one of the options that you gave.
Okay, to clarify, that is keeping the bid the way it is and removing the sunshades, the plumbing package, and repackaging the site package to drive the cost down as much as possible. Okay, thank you.
Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
I would be glad to if I had the retention to do that. But I really don't at this time.
Tell me how to help you and I will.
Okay. Go ahead. You tell me repeat what you just said, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Option one for the board is to move forward with GMP3 for the new courthouse expansion project with the original intent and design while removing the fixture packages that we talked about for the second and third floor, as well as standardizing the ones on the first floor and basement for an estimated savings of $400,000 to $500,000, as well as removing all of the exterior sunshades for an estimated savings of $400,000, and rebidding the site package in a hopeful savings of $600,000 to $800,000.
You, Blake, Commissioner Kiger, is that?
I would, if that's in the form of a motion, I would second that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what we gain on the sunshades, but, that may be something you just look at somewhere, hold it back now, and then you look at it again somewhere down the road. But I would second that motion if it gets in
So
the
I
form
will
of
so
one.
move that as a motion, or put that in form of a motion, please.
Okay.
Are we good?
We have a motion and a second.
Now I'd like to ask a question. So the bathrooms and the things that you're doing, there will be things that we'll have to come back and do, but the plumbing will be in place, so it will not be out of sight cost.
The water and sewer extension is
Right, okay. Whereas if you were to take all that out, then
You'd have to
you've got a major,
core drill
yeah.
through the slabs and
Okay,
everything.
I'm good
Yep.
with that. Just want to make sure I'm good with the motion I made. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a
Is there
question.
other discussion?
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
Kyle, just so I understand, Commissioner Honeycutt's motion, that is to, I just want to make sure I'm following everybody, your
Yep.
motion.
Yep.
So that is to go back with the original intent, and what is the cost saving, just to make sure,
What do you-
without the restrooms and, is that just, I guess my question is that just focusing on the hardscape and the storefront redo, and then obviously the bathrooms, and what was the cost savings there? Are
No,
we at
no.
the
The
3 point?
intent of that motion is the original design with all the new curtain wall,
Got it, okay.
as well as seismic shear walls, waterproofing, the whole 9 yards,
Okay.
minus $400,000 to $500,000 in plumbing, $600 to $800 in site work, and no sunshades. And I think what you want to hear is maybe a approximation of that estimate.
Please.
Would that, okay.
Yep.
So I would say that's
1.4 to 1.7, roughly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Does that, I want to make sure I get everyone's questions.
Additional questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. Okay, that motion passes 4-1. Thank you, gentlemen. You've been extremely patient.
Thank you.
That's the longest old business we've had in 10 years, I think. So we move now to our consent agenda. These are all items that were discussed at length at our work session 2 weeks ago. I think we have 23 items on that list. And please.
I'll move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. That motion passes. And we move now to new business. And so we have our item G1, library early closing and staff training days, and Kelly Sifford will lead us in that discussion.
Much to your relief, we will not be talking about money.
Oh,
So the library, all of our different library branches, with the holidays coming up, they've started to get contacts from the different jurisdictions about the events that they want to hold, and they do impact several of our branches. So Mount Pleasant, for example, the parade is earlier this year. They need to use our parking lot starting around 1 o'clock that day. So we would need to close at 1 o'clock in order to make that space available for the parade. That's where they're setting up. In addition to that, the city of Kannapolis is holding their tree lighting ceremony, and that affects the parking at the Kannapolis branch, as it's right next to the park where the tree lighting occurs. So that would be probably an hour early closing that day. And then finally, the Concord branch is affected by the Christmas parade and the Santa Scramble 5K that happens just prior to the parade. They will be closing off Union Street at noon that day. You would be able to access that library from the parking deck. However, all of our handicap parking is next to the building. So it would be problematic for anybody who uses that particular, those spaces. So we would probably need to close at 12 when we normally close at 6. So we wanted to bring to you, because this is something that's kind of been handled in a lot of different ways, and in addition to that, there are 2 library training days, which you've heard us discuss a year, one in the spring, one in the fall, that when we went back and started looking at the records, it was talked about and discussed at a commissioner's, I think a work session maybe even, but it was never formally voted on. So what we want to get from you is how you want to handle these. Do you want these to be things that are handled administratively, or do you want us to bring those items to you to be voted on The only catch, I think, for these is that, you know, some of these events we would like for everybody to give us plenty of notice, but they don't. And so we might have a quick turnaround trying to get something on an agenda if you want to make that choice every time as a board. So I'm looking for direction on how you want those items to be handled. If you want them to be handled two separate ways, that's fine as well. We can, you know, handle those, put something on the agenda every year for the 2 days for you to approve if you want to do that. Just looking for some direction.
Yeah, there's the library training days, that we have multiple branches, as you know, so it's hard to get staff together unless you do it on a Sunday, because that's the only day they're not open, and we don't want them to be coming in then. So what this gives an opportunity to shut down the branches where all of the staff can come together and be trained at one time, and then they can go back the next day and they're back in their own branches and going again. So with any of these, we will make sure that there's plenty of prior notice, whether it's in the newspaper or the website, everything, to give everybody, the public, the ability to see that it is closed so that they don't just show up. Most of the virtual will still, all of the ability to use the library virtually will still be in place, so they can do that from their home. It's just a matter of trying to give that staff 2 opportunities a year to come together as a staff and train.
Yes, and so in those trainings, we are doing required trainings and recommended trainings for those boards. And in addition to this, I didn't specifically mention it because this is kind of an ongoing situation too, is we are having a problem with parking at Harrisburg every Saturday. We did get a count of the past 3 weeks of our patrons just to see what that looked like. We are having a little less than, on average, 300 people visiting just our library branch. So that doesn't include all the people that are there for the sports. So we've got kind of multiple issues going on with different branches, but we will probably come back to you later with some suggestions on that particular part, but.
I can offer my opinion on it. I think it should be handled administratively. I think between assistant county manager and county manager and the library director are best equipped to deal with those situations. And I think it would be cumbersome for all involved if that had to come before the board each time.
I would agree with that. I think we have a very competent staff able to make those decisions. Thank you.
So I got head nods across the board. So does that give you enough?
Does that satisfy, you want to vote?
Put that in the form of a motion. I would move that county management have the discretion to deal with library early closing, staff training days, and other issues that may arise in determining the operating hours of the library throughout the year. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. We will get on advertising those dates.
Okay. And we move now to reports and general comments by board members. Anybody have anything?
Yes, I have a report from the Youth Commission. Prior to this meeting, I was in a meeting with them. We have our Youth Commission student here with us today. They wanted me to convey that they are working on some initiatives. Get Out and Go initiative, which encourages youth to get out and explore and empathy. Also, they are working on their Instagram page. For those of you that want to follow it, it's CCYouthCOM, and that's on Instagram. And so they're working on putting out some communications to get people involved about events in town to get out and go. They also wanted me to let you know that they're almost at capacity, but we have no representation from J.M. Robinson or West Cabarrus at this point. All the other schools have representation, so we're just shy of few students. So if anybody in the viewing audience would like to have their student engage with us and reach out and become involved with the Youth Commission, we would love to have them.
All right, thank you. Any other reports or comments? And I will apologize to our youth commissioner. He asked me at the beginning of the meeting how long I thought this would last. I said, somebody said, probably an hour and a half. I said, oh, no, we're going to wrap this up in an hour. And so I was off by an hour, so my apologies. We do have need of a closed session tonight. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session as authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, A, 3, and 6. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We are now in closed session. Thank you to all that joined us in person as well as those online.